what is the actual essence of self-energy? And I think that this can be summed up with a very simple and powerful word, which is peace. Self-energy is a state of peace. Good day to you. Happy to have you here. My name is Connor. Today we're going to be asking the question, what does self-energy actually feel like? And if you're tuning into this channel, you probably already have an idea of what self-energy is. We can talk about that within 30 seconds. Self-energy is a concept, a perspective, or a place to live from within the IFS model. So we have all these parts, and then we have self. And ideally, we want to try to access and live from self as much as we possibly can. So there are some characteristics that define self. We will briefly mention those, but we're also going to talk about it in perhaps a deeper way, but also a simpler way for us to better understand the actual sensation of self-energy. So the characteristics of self, as you probably know, calm, curious, compassionate, confident, connected, courageous, clarity, and creativity. So when we do IFS work, what we're looking for are any of those characteristics that we can feel. And if we feel those, then we know self-energy is present. There might be other parts present, and we might need to unblend. So unblending is the process of separating or making more space from self and parts. And that process, perhaps we can talk about in more length in a different video. But in IFS, we are looking to work from self-energy. Unless you have a practitioner holding self-energy for you and they are directly speaking to or working with a part or parts of your system, that's a great way to do it too. But there needs to be somewhere in the field self in order to really do IFS work effectively and safely. So this is great to know. With 8 very simple characteristics that all start with C. I have said it many times in other videos, but the 3 that I always point out to for clients: calm, curious, and compassionate. The other 5 are also fantastic. It's not that they're less important, but for me in my practice, I have found that it's easier for clients to remember those 3, and it's also pretty easy to find at least a little bit of one of those that we can tap into, activate self, and kind of expand it from there. But what is the actual feeling of self-energy? So perhaps you do understand in your own body, your own system, what calm feels like. I'm sure that you do. And perhaps you understand what curiosity feels like. And perhaps you understand what compassion feels like. And that's fantastic, because what we want to do is move it from a mental concept into the body. We really want to use this body as our compass as much as we can to bring self-energy online. So there's a difference between the question, am I calm? Am I curious? Am I compassionate? Versus, do I feel calm? Do I feel curious? Do I feel compassionate? So again, fantastic that we have these 8 characteristics that we can look to. Every IFS practitioner should be looking for those characteristics within you if you're working with them and helping you bring those more online. But again, what is the actual essence of self-energy? And I think that this can be summed up with a very simple and powerful word, which is peace. Self-energy is a state of peace. And within that, these 8 C's exist. But there are also other characteristics and other sensations that are present when we talk about peace. So within the essence of peace, when we are feeling peace, nothing has to happen. And that's a very important part of the IFS process, is that we don't have an agenda. And if we do have parts that feel urgent about getting somewhere in the process, we really need to pay attention to those parts and help them relax before we attempt to get in and do work with other parts. Because these other parts are going to feel that urgent part and will most likely have resistance. And perhaps it may even create an unsafe environment for your parts and for your system as a whole. So peacefulness has a real gentle quality. It's very presencing. We are right here, right now. We are also in a state of acceptance. Everything that is okay. There might be challenge, there might be difficulty, there might be darkness, but it's okay. Because there's also light, and there's beauty, and there's love, and there's hope. And I already referenced this, but peace also has this very innate quality of presence, of being very mindfully here in this moment. So there are many different ways to activate self-energy, and that can be done through the IFS protocols, the IFS process, but it can also be done in many other ways. And it is my innate belief that you absolutely have tapped into a fullness of self-energy in your life, that you have tapped into a state of peace many times in your life. And I would be curious to ask you the question right now, can you think of one of those times? Can you remember a time when you felt truly at peace? So if there is a time that comes to mind, you can go back into that memory and you can be in that state and just notice what you feel, what's happening around you, what thoughts are present or not present, what's your emotional state, and perhaps most importantly, what is the sensation in your body? When I think of a state of peace for myself, I automatically go to something in nature. And for me, it often includes water. So I'm sitting at the beach in the sand, and it's very quiet, and I'm just listening to the waves. Or I'm sitting in the woods next to a river. Maybe my feet are in the river, and I'm looking at these rocks, maybe gently tumbling down the river as the river moves. And there's wind, and the trees are swaying. And there's a real gentleness. And actually, there's a real magic to it. Because that state of supreme presence and peace, it is a magical state. And to be able to really honor that and to say, this is an exceptional place to be. It holds a lot of power, but it's a very gentle power. So that's where my mind goes into memory of places and times when I feel maybe the most peaceful. And I'm curious to know where your mind goes. Now, we can try one, we could call it a trick, right this moment to bring more peace into the system. And so I want you to try this with me. And then I want you to notice what happens in your body and what the sensation is that you receive. So we're just going to breathe in and then we're going to sigh out loud. Okay, are you ready? And right there. Can you feel it? And if so, what does it feel like? You don't have to put words to it, and you don't have to think about it. You just are noticing. So my guess is, if you're watching this video, you're really interested in IFS. You're really interested in doing IFS for yourself, on yourself. And maybe you have a practitioner, or maybe you would like to have a practitioner. That's great. But also, a lot of this work has to do with you and your system. And I think that's probably why you're here. So you can continue to do great IFS work, but also keep in mind that this idea of self and this place of peace does not need IFS protocols in order to be activated. This is something you can activate at any time. And the breathing in with the verbal sigh is a really easy way for the body to just feel more peaceful. And perhaps you have some ways that you know bring you more peace. And if that's the case, I think we all would really love to hear about those in the comments below. If you are interested in more work that you can do in the IFS process, but also to activate more self, more peace, I have a great program called the Self-Led IFS program on my website, and you can get that in the link down below. I hope that you subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And of course, if you like the video, you find it helpful, you can give it a thumbs up, and that will help it reach more people. I send you and all of your parts a lot of love, a lot of compassion, and a lot of peace for today. I'll speak to you soon.